In the spring of 1946, Europe was a continent still trembling under the weight of destruction. Cities lay in ruins, streets jagged with rubble, and the skies above carried the lingering haze of smoke. Yet amid this devastation, Cologne Cathedral rose untouched, its twin spires piercing the gray clouds like silent sentinels over a shattered city. For centuries, the cathedral had been both a symbol of faith and a testament to human ambition. But in the aftermath of war, it became something more, a gateway into a hidden past, waiting patiently beneath its stone foundations. At that time, a small team of archaeologists quietly assembled beneath the cathedral, led by Otto Doppelfeld, a man known for meticulous precision and cautious methodology. There were no banners, no public fanfare, no cameras eager to capture the spectacle. The world's attention was elsewhere, focused on rebuilding, rationing, and surviving. And yet, for those few who descended into the darkened pits beneath Cologne Cathedral, a different world was waiting, one that challenged everything they thought they knew about history, architecture, and the limits of human ingenuity. The initial task was deceptively simple: inspect the foundations, record structural anomalies, and preserve remnants of the Gothic and Romanesque faces of the cathedral. However, almost immediately the team encountered something that defied expectations. Beneath the familiar medieval stonework lay layers of construction that seemed impossibly precise and massive, far beyond what medieval builders could have achieved. Some walls appeared perfectly aligned with geometric exactness, forming chambers and corridors that didn't correspond to the cathedral above. Others bore evidence of water exposure, as though ancient floods had once surged through these tunnels, yet the masonry remained remarkably intact. Doppelfeld's notes, painstakingly detailed, describe stone blocks so tightly fitted that no paper could slide between them. Some stones weighed several tons, yet showed no visible marks of cranes or modern lifting equipment. As the photographs from the excavation reveal, workers balanced precariously on ladders, surrounded by enormous stone foundations emerging from centuries of packed earth. Shadows stretched across the walls, lending an eerie sense of age and scale. In those early days, the atmosphere beneath the cathedral was suffused with tension, wonder, and disbelief. What made the excavation particularly striking was its silence. While other post-war archaeological projects across Europe were widely publicized, Cologne's dig remained almost entirely hidden. Only a handful of grainy photographs survived, capturing men in overalls standing beside colossal stonework, peering into shadowed corridors that seemed to descend deeper into the earth with every step. The photographs themselves convey a story. The deeper you look, the stranger it becomes. Massive arches appeared out of nowhere, their curvature suggesting advanced planning, while some chambers were lined with stone floors in patterns almost mathematical in precision. It was as though layers of civilizations had been stacked one atop another, forgotten, buried, and then rediscovered by accident. Some stones were clearly not local, suggesting transportation over long distances, an extraordinary feat for the era supposedly responsible for them. Some corridors, partially submerged or water-worn, hinted at a sophisticated understanding of hydraulics rarely associated with medieval or even Roman construction. And yet the project moved forward quietly, with Doppelfeld's team recording everything in meticulous journals but revealing little to the outside world. This first stage of the excavation raised questions that would echo through decades. Why were these chambers built with such precision? Why did certain corridors not match the visible layout of the cathedral above? And why had no previous generation of builders or historians documented them in detail? Alternative researchers later suggested that these findings could indicate that Cologne Cathedral was constructed atop even older, far more advanced structures, layers of history hidden beneath the medieval narrative, remnants of civilizations whose knowledge had been lost to time. Even Doppelfeld, a man trained in the most traditional of archaeological methods, seemed taken aback by the depth and sophistication of what he uncovered. The excavations revealed not merely foundations, but rooms, passageways, and massive structural components that seemed over-engineered for their supposed age. Some walls were aligned so perfectly that modern engineers would struggle to reproduce them with contemporary tools. And as the team dug deeper, they discovered remnants that suggested intentional concealment: filled chambers, blocked passages, and layers of earth deliberately compacted as if someone had wished to obscure what lay beneath. At the same time, the timing of the excavation was extraordinary. The destruction of the city center had exposed parts of the cathedral's base that had not been accessible for centuries. Rubble from bombed buildings allowed for sudden entry into areas previously unreachable, revealing stonework that had remained hidden under layers of earth and debris. It was, in a sense, a convergence of chance, history, and curiosity, a fleeting opportunity to glimpse a past that had been buried not by time alone, but perhaps by human design. As the first section of Operation Unearthing Cologne Cathedral drew on, the team began to piece together a picture of the site's complexity. The deeper they dug, the more anomalies appeared. Geometric stone floors, massive weight-bearing arches, and chambers whose size seemed disproportionate to the cathedral above, all of these features suggested a story far richer and stranger than the official historical timeline allowed. By the end of those initial weeks, it was clear to Doppelfeld and his team that this was not simply a medieval cathedral built atop Roman ruins. Something older, something more advanced, and profoundly enigmatic lay beneath Cologne, hidden for centuries, waiting to be rediscovered. As the weeks passed, the excavation revealed corridors and chambers so vast they seemed to stretch far beyond the original plans of the cathedral. Some rooms were rectangular, perfectly aligned, while others were irregular, suggesting multiple phases of construction or perhaps different hands building across centuries. Dust and rubble were carefully cleared, and with each layer removed, the team uncovered more evidence of extraordinary craftsmanship. The stones themselves bore markings, seemingly etched with tools far more advanced than hammers and chisels typically used during the Middle Ages. In one of the largest chambers discovered, walls rose nearly 10 meters high, capped with enormous arches that curved with an architectural elegance unexpected for the period. The precision was striking. The joints between stones were seamless, without mortar in some cases, yet stable enough to have withstood centuries of earthquakes, bombings, and water damage. Several stones appeared to have been polished deliberately, their surfaces smooth and reflective, hinting at a ceremonial or functional purpose beyond simple support. The deeper the team explored, the stranger the layout became. Corridors branched at unusual angles, some ended in dead ends, while others appeared to extend into darkness far beyond what torches could illuminate. There were no inscriptions or familiar religious symbols in most areas, only patterns and designs that seemed abstract, geometric, almost mathematical. Some rooms contained depressions in the stone floor, circular pits whose purpose eluded immediate understanding. Others had niches carved into walls, possibly for holding objects now lost to time. Among the most compelling discoveries were a series of massive stone blocks, each weighing several tons, arranged in patterns that defied the natural logistics of medieval construction. No evidence suggested cranes, pulleys, or lifting equipment had been used to place these stones with such precision. Modern engineers would later analyze these formations, noting angles and alignments that suggest a knowledge of weight distribution and structural stability far ahead of what was known in Europe at that time. As the excavation progressed, the team also uncovered traces of water channels, indicating an ancient system for managing underground flow. Some passages were partially flooded, suggesting that centuries ago, water may have been intentionally diverted through these chambers.
The channels were expertly constructed, with sloped floors and tight joints to prevent leakage. This raised questions about the original purpose of the chambers. Were they storage areas, secret meeting places, or part of an elaborate defensive or hydraulic system? The exact function remained a mystery, but the engineering alone was enough to challenge conventional historical assumptions. Artifacts were scarce, but when they appeared, they were often puzzling. Pieces of metal that resisted corrosion, fragments of pottery with intricate designs, and shards of glass that seemed unusually thick and uniform, hinted at a society with advanced crafting skills. None bore inscriptions matching known medieval alphabets, nor did they resemble Roman artifacts. Instead, the objects suggested a culture with both artistic sensibility and technical expertise, a civilization now lost to history. Tension grew within the team as speculation ran wild. Some suggested that Cologne had been built atop remnants of an unknown advanced civilization, possibly predating Roman occupation. Others remained cautious, emphasizing the need for careful documentation and peer review. Doppelfeld, ever meticulous, insisted on recording every anomaly, every unexpected discovery, yet he could not entirely conceal his astonishment. The precision of the construction, the scale of the chambers, and the sophistication of the design hinted at knowledge far exceeding what medieval Europe possessed or even what the world believed possible.
By the end of the second month of excavation, the cathedral's substructure had become a labyrinth of stone and shadow. Narrow passageways, vast halls, and blocked corridors stretched like veins beneath the city, suggesting a level of planning and foresight that bordered on the incomprehensible. Each new discovery added to the growing sense that the official history of Cologne, and perhaps of Europe itself, only scratched the surface of what truly lay beneath. The world above continued its slow reconstruction, unaware of the secrets unfolding below. And while Doppelfeld's team moved cautiously, documenting, photographing, and mapping, the question lingered in every mind present. Who had built this, and why? These hidden architects had left no written records, no signature, nothing but their massive, silent creations. And as the excavation continued, it became increasingly clear that the answers might challenge everything historians had long assumed about human history in this region. By the third month, the excavation had reached levels that few believed possible. Some corridors descended so deep that daylight could not penetrate, forcing the team to rely entirely on electric lamps and torches. It was in these depths that the most unsettling discoveries began to emerge. Objects and structures that seemed to defy logic, science, and accepted historical knowledge. In one chamber, the team uncovered a series of mechanical devices carved entirely from stone and metal. Some resembled gears and levers, yet their construction suggested they could handle far more stress than any known medieval machinery. No documentation or historical reference existed for such devices. Engineers brought in to study the finds were baffled. The precision of the components implied tools and knowledge that should not have existed for centuries. Some hypothesized that these devices were used for astronomical calculations, while others suggested ritualistic purposes, but the truth remained elusive. Even stranger were the walls themselves. Embedded within the stone, researchers found small crystalline formations that appeared almost deliberately placed. When exposed to certain light angles, these crystals reflected patterns that resembled star charts. It was as if the builders had encoded astronomical knowledge directly into the structure, possibly for navigation, prediction, or something far more obscure. The implication was staggering. Knowledge that modern scholars attributed to later civilizations appeared to have existed centuries earlier. One of the most controversial discoveries came when a team member stumbled upon an object partially buried in sediment. It was a metallic artifact, small enough to hold in the hand, yet intricately designed with interlocking parts that moved smoothly despite centuries of corrosion. Attempts to identify its function were fruitless. The artifact did not match any known medieval tool, weapon, or ceremonial item. Some speculated it might have been a measuring device, a component of a larger machine, or even something beyond the current understanding of technology. Regardless, its very existence ignited heated debates among archaeologists, historians, and engineers alike. Alongside these objects, the team found inscriptions unlike any previously recorded in Cologne or the surrounding region. The symbols were neither Latin nor Gothic. They appeared geometric, abstract, and at times mathematical. Attempts to decipher them yielded no consistent pattern, though some researchers noted similarities to ancient numeric systems and astronomical symbols. The mystery deepened. Could these markings represent an entirely unknown language or knowledge system lost to the passage of time? Perhaps the most alarming revelation came from structural anomalies within the stone chambers themselves. Certain arches were perfectly symmetrical, yet they used methods of weight distribution unknown in medieval architecture. Stones in key load-bearing positions were carved with subtle adjustments that suggested a sophisticated understanding of physics, centuries ahead of when such knowledge was officially recorded. Some engineers speculated that these builders had mastered techniques that modern construction engineers were only beginning to rediscover. The atmosphere in the excavation shifted. What had begun as careful documentation of hidden medieval chambers now felt like uncovering a civilization out of place in history. Scholars debated publicly, some dismissing the finds as hoaxes or misinterpretations, while others warned that ignoring them would risk underestimating the achievements of an advanced, yet anonymous culture. Doppelfeld himself began keeping a private journal of anomalies, noting patterns, structural oddities, and inexplicable artifacts that suggested a coherent, yet mysterious knowledge base.
As Section 3 closed, the underground network of Cologne Cathedral was no longer just a curiosity, it had become a historical enigma. Every discovery posed more questions than answers. The world above remained oblivious, yet beneath the surface, the past whispered of knowledge, technology, and architectural mastery that could rewrite human history. The question that haunted every member of the team was no longer just who built this, but how and why was it forgotten? By the spring of 1946, the excavation beneath Cologne had attracted attention beyond the scholarly community. Local authorities, initially intrigued by the promise of uncovering medieval treasures, began to act cautiously. Rumors of unusual artifacts, technological anomalies, and impossible architecture had already spread quietly among select historians and engineers. The nature of these discoveries challenged established narratives of European history, and some feared the consequences if the information became public. One afternoon, Doppelfeld received an unexpected visitor, a government official whose presence was both polite and unnerving. The official's questions were precise, almost surgical, as he probed the methods, the finds, and the team itself. There was an unspoken pressure to limit the scope of documentation and restrict photography of certain chambers. Scholars sensed that the world above the rubble might not be ready to confront what lay beneath. Yet there was no way to halt curiosity or human fascination with the unknown. Meanwhile, the excavation continued in secret, with a rotating team of archaeologists, engineers, and historians working late into the night. They documented everything meticulously, aware that the true significance of their finds could only be understood in hindsight. Among the most baffling items were devices that seemed to demonstrate advanced mechanics, gears, levers, and pulleys that modern engineers could scarcely replicate. Some even speculated about the presence of knowledge resembling rudimentary electricity or energy manipulation, centuries before such concepts were formally discovered. The deeper the team delved, the more they realized that the underground chambers were not random or purely utilitarian. Certain rooms seemed purposefully aligned with celestial events, the solstice, equinox, and lunar phases.
In one chamber, crystalline inlays reflected light in a pattern that mirrored star constellations when illuminated correctly. It was as though the builders encoded a cosmic calendar into stone itself, creating a silent and immovable library of astronomical knowledge. Scholars debated whether this was ritualistic, scientific, or something far more abstract, an attempt to communicate with forces beyond comprehension. Pressure to suppress the findings intensified as the team uncovered objects of undeniable technological sophistication. A device resembling a miniature mechanism composed of interlocking parts far too precise for medieval craftsmanship sparked heated discussions about its origin. Was it the product of a lost civilization, or had knowledge been transmitted from a forgotten culture? No historical records matched the artifacts, and each discovery deepened the enigma of Cologne's subterranean world. Eventually, whispers of secrecy reached the broader academic community. Some dismissed the rumors as exaggeration or misinterpretation. Others suspected that the post-war chaos provided the perfect cover to bury discoveries that could disrupt accepted history. Doppelfeld and his team continued their work quietly, photographing, cataloging, and sketching everything. Yet the pressure to suppress, both subtle and overt, became impossible to ignore. Reports were quietly redirected, artifacts stored in unmarked crates, and sensitive documentation locked away in archives inaccessible to the public. By the end of the excavation, what emerged from the ruins was a profound sense of awe and frustration. The underground chambers of Cologne Cathedral hinted at a forgotten mastery, architectural, mechanical, and astronomical, that defied conventional timelines. Scholars and engineers alike were forced to confront uncomfortable questions. What if human history had chapters we had never seen? What if knowledge had existed only to vanish, leaving behind fragments and whispers? Though the world above focused on rebuilding from war, beneath the shattered stones of Cologne, a secret civilization's legacy endured. The artifacts, the inscriptions, the impossible mechanisms, they were reminders that history was not as linear or complete as humanity had been led to believe. And in the shadows of forgotten corridors, one truth became clear. Some knowledge, no matter how profound, could be hidden away, waiting centuries for those willing to search beyond the surface.